Welcome to episode 123 of The Nero Show. In today's episode,
we've got a wrap-up of recent equipment we've been testing. For me, it's carbon versus steel spokes, wider rear tyres measuring 34mm, and for Chris, it's a bit of an aero road helmet shootout, the POC Pro Enve versus the Kask Nirvana.
Do it all bikes. We go through them, God tier to dud tier, all the way through.
And Colnago have released the V5RS, which we think is easily the worst bike release of the last 12 months. We tell you why. All right, let's get into it.
Where do you want to start this week, Jesse?
Let's leave news. Obviously, the V5RS has launched. We're going to get to it. But I thought just to start with, we would just chat through some stuff we've been testing, what we've been riding, and if we've got any chat about it. Like, for example, I've moved off carbon spokes onto steel spokes, and I've got some chat about it. I thought I'd ask you about some of your rim depths you've been using. You got helmet chat. Just go through a bit of that before we get into news this week. How's that sound?
Like it. Yes, I like it because we have been flip flopping around a few ideas, and I think we've both come up with our own theories on what we're liking and what we're not liking. And I reckon we should chat about. I want to start with your.
Well, you talked me into this one, right?
Yes.
So you kind of planted the seed in my ear that just don't give up on steel spokes just yet. And I thought, okay. Not something I would usually be bothered doing, but just because we're doing the show, I thought, all right, let's see. Can I get some steel-spoked wheels?
That's an understatement, Jesse. Yeah. Things that Jesse cannot normally be doing, changing anything on his bike, is very much under that heading.
Yeah, so I thought, all right, I'll give it a go. So, unfortunately, I can't just swap the spokes on my current wheel, so I'm testing different wheel set. Similar depth, though, so it's the 60mm deep wheels from Caden, not K-Dex, Caden, which he's actually lives down the road. He's in Coogee, Australian brand. The new 2025 rims, so it's a 25 internal, 34.5 external. There's a few different things changing. That's good. So slightly wider. Same rim widths front and rear too. So you don't get that annoying, that I think, narrower on the rear. And then it's not stretching your tyre as wide. So that changed. His own hubs, which are interestingly straight pull on one side, J-bend on the other side.
Okay.
So kind of interesting. And then obviously the big thing is he said, do you want carbon spokes or steel spokes? I said, no, give me the steel spokes. So I think they're the DT Swiss. So off the bat, I guess from what the chat you were having is what am I trying to figure out here? What do I want to know? Do I notice a weight increase much? How much does the weight increase? Are the wheels more comfortable with steel spokes? Because that's the thing. The carbon spokes are supposed to be super stiff, so the wheels, in theory, could be more comfortable. And aerodynamics, crosswind stability. You know, you kind of reckon those big carbon spokes are catching some wind. So is the wheel more stable?
Well, what about the weight? Start with the weight then.
Really difficult to compare because it's a totally different wheel set. But I actually potentially have overblown the weight difference before because a carbon spoke is only sort of 1 or 2 grams lighter than the steel spoke. So all other things being equal, if you just swap the spokes out on a wheel set and it's like 24 spokes a wheel, you're looking at maybe 100 grams saved, which is why those Yolio steel spoked wheels in a 50mm depth are like 1360, and some of the lightest 50mm carbon spoke wheels are about 1250. So you're looking at 100 grams difference, not 200 or 300, just from changing the spoke. So the weight's not that big a deal. Unless you're desperate to have a 1200 gram wheel set, it's going to need carbon spokes.
Did you mention? Well, obviously, I'll bring up some B-roll of it. You'll have to send me some.
Yeah.
But the rims that you're talking about. Can you describe them? Because they are quite unique, I think, in terms of... We're not just talking about a standard V-shaped rim here, are we?
No, they're pretty modern. They are sort of U-shaped. They actually look quite similar to the reserve rims.
Yes.
So, yeah, 25 internal, and I think like at the widest point in the internal, it's like 27.5. And then it comes out to get to the widest point, which is 34.5. A couple of centimeters down the rim, and then it tucks back in again and still quite blunt at the end, so quite U-shaped. So yeah, very similar to a reserve shape by the looks of things. I know that the reserve rims are different front and rear, whereas these are the exact same front and rear. The problem with weight is just because I say it doesn't really feel that much heavier because I'm 90 kilos and I'm not climbing a 10% gradient.
You've gone up a few more. All right, okay.
It doesn't mean the weight's not relevant. It's still extra weight you're carrying around. But do I feel that difference? And this is kind of something you said. No, you're kind of right. I don't really notice the weight difference that much. The thing is, though, the wheels aren't more comfortable, which I thought was interesting. You blindfolded me. I'd actually say the way Ben laces the wheels, they are stiffer than the CRWs.
That's interesting.
Stiffer laterally and also stiffer vertically. They feel actually less comfortable. If you blindfolded me and asked me what were the carbon spoked wheels, I'd say that the CRWs were steel spoked and these were carbon, just in terms of the sensation I'm expecting, which is just interesting.
But that can be the tuning of a steel spoke, though, isn't it? Like a wheel builder might have seen you and gone, oh, this bloke, he wants rough as guts, stiff, hard wheels, and he's therefore tuned them that way.
Well, I actually asked him. He said, oh, yeah, it's to do with the lacing pattern I use and the benefit you get from the front wheel being stiffer. He says is worth the slight comfort difference, and you make up the comfort difference in the tire pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And so this whole steel versus carbon spokes for comfort thing, I think there's way too many other factors that it shouldn't really be factored in, which is different for me. That's probably that's not what I would have said before I'd gone back to the steel spokes. There's just way too many things going on with a wheel to just put down comfort to the spoke material.
Well, once we're in that 24, 25 rip internals, the comfort factor is going to be a tough one to really find, given the amount of tyre that's on the road.
Similar to the reserves, there are actually more spokes in these wheels. Those CRWs only have, I think, 16 spokes. I think there's 24 in the front, Caden. So there's more spokes, but the crosswind stability is better.
Well, this is what I want to get into.
Yeah.
Because this was the point for me.
Yeah.
Was just pure speed and cross-section performance.
Yeah, in short, the crosswind stability does feel better. Even though there's more spokes, they are slightly thinner. Maybe it's something to do with that. So I don't know what quite is going on. Maybe it's because the rim is slightly heavier or something to do with the shape. I'm not too sure. But yeah, the crosswind stability has been improved. So I'm at this weird point where if I'm comparing these wheels, so just in terms of the carbon versus alloy spoke thing, if the weight doesn't matter, if you put aside the weight,
I'm just giggling over
there's
here.
There's almost no. To me, there's no difference.
Hang on, there's no difference.
Mm-hmm.
There's no difference between the carbon and steel spokes.
Not really. Besides the weight.
So you're not saying that. I thought where we were headed here. I was jumping a few steps in front. I thought the conclusion you were coming to was, do you know what, Chris? I think you're right. Steel spokes, increased stability. I don't really notice the weight difference.
But I can't put the crosswind stability down to just the spokes. It could be something to do with the rim, and I'll explain why in a second when I talk about the tires I put on.
Okay.
But just in terms of the spoke, yes, the carbon spoke's lighter. Aside from that, it's much of a muchness, really. I could easily have asked him to put the carbon spokes in, all the steel spokes. It's not that much. And the weight saving is significant, like 100 grams is 100 grams, but it's not night and day. So it's just kind of interesting between these two wheels. And I was kind of, am I splitting, it brings up another question, like at this level of wheel, which are both high performance, am I splitting hairs or are there actual differences? Compared to like a 1,800 gram, 30 mil deep Mavic or something slop, these are both really good.
Yep.
And so you could easily just go, they're all the same, they're all really high performance, which is true, but there are noticeable differences. So the lighter Chinese CRWs, they're lighter, they accelerate a bit faster, and they're more comfortable somehow. Less spokes, maybe the rim. The rim actually does move when you're going over bumps. Like maybe there's a little bit more deflection in the actual rim. So yeah, lighter, more comfortable. The Caden's stiffer, better crosswind stability, but slightly heavier and not as comfortable. And so it really is a case of deciding what I want the wheel to do. And unfortunately for the CRW, for what I do, the Caden wheels actually feel more appropriate.
I think you want to say it, but you're not willing to say it.
Okay.
I think you're coming to the conclusion that the Caden wheels are faster.
No, that's wrong. I said what I just said.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to say I said that I just said the Caden wheels are better suited for me. You can't just blanket say they're faster. What if I'm not riding at 50k an hour and I get the 50, 60 CRWs and I ride short punchy climbs all the time? Then that's going to be a better wheel. Slightly more comfortable, and I'm not hooking into a crosswind at 50k an hour.
Which wheel set would you choose to do a West Head road race?
I think the Caden wheels are better for me.
Okay.
But I'm not.
No, that's good. That's
so I don't want to, you can't like.
I am trying to push you outside.
Yes, but that's what I'm trying. I'm almost trying to make the opposite of your point. And I'm saying these wheels are all, pick any of them. They're all like these top wheels are all good.
Mm-hmm.
But there are differences for different riders. Like there are. It's not. You can't really just say, oh, they're all, at that price level, they're all good. It's like, yeah, they're all good, but there are differences. And that's kind of what I'm saying is there are definitely riders that are going to prefer the lighter wheel for what that does. And the bearings. The Cadens have steel bearings versus ceramic. I probably prefer the steel bearings for the longevity. So there are differences here. And like, I think it's kind of interesting for me now to having tested both that I'm like, no, you really have to think through what you're doing. What riding you're doing. And for me, and I've thought through that process, I'm like, yeah, the CRW is probably not the wheel for me.
Did you find at speed that you felt the carbon spokes didn't hold their speed?
No.
Okay. Because I stand by that there was almost like an additional resistance from the carbon spokes. And I got that across the 3 different carbon spoke wheels that I rode. And yes, I am talking at relatively high speeds, 45 kilometers an hour plus. I don't know whether that's just the thickness of the carbon spoke. That's sort of, it's seemingly like it's a pretty generic carbon spoke at the moment. And I've mentioned this to a few people in the past. Can we get thinner? Can we get a carbon spoke that's the width of a steel spoke?
Mm-hmm.
And the collective reply seems to be no. There's a lot of strain on those spokes, and you need the thickness of a thicker carboned spoke.
Right. Well, I wouldn't say I felt that. I just did feel the crosswind stability a little better. So yeah, in those situations where you're getting a bit of that side wind, probably does feel like it's holding its speed better, but not purely if there's no wind and you're just going down a 1% downhill. I don't really feel.
I mean, I would triple down on this argument if it wasn't for some of those cycling news tests where we saw the scopes win essentially with their spokes. Now, they also have some other kind of really proprietary aspects to their wheels, which could be doing that. But
they also have the hidden
Factor
nipples
ones
and
did
stuff.
They do. But the Factor ones did okay in that test. I mean, the Enves and the reserves still beat them, but yeah, it still felt like something to me. And maybe that's the weight difference between us, the power difference. I'm not sure, but you can't. I will nail my. I mean, I can't see a world where I go back to carbon spokes anytime soon.
What if you? So you wouldn't want to run the scope wheels?
Well,
don't think that'd be any good.
Never say never.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, but again, like that's such a proprietary solution.
I'm kind of agreeing with you. If you're just on a standard sort of setup and you just have the choice of carbon or steel, unless you need that lighter weight, it's kind of. I actually think it's much of a muchness. I don't think steel's better. I just think it's not this like I need carbon spokes.
Can I take that just quickly into a little bit more wheel chat then?
Yeah, I got some more on the tyres.
Let me go. Can I go with rim depth?
Yes, go. Yeah.
So what I've been doing recently is flicking between the reserve 5263s and the reserve 4249s. Now, I rode the 4249s at peaks, and then I subsequently rode them the following weekend at Grafton, and I basically haven't taken them off. And that's not true. I took them off for the Hayman Classic and blew out the front wheel. Shout to a lot of mainstream wheel manufacturers, replaced, no questions asked. But anyway, and now that's 6 months that I've been riding the 42 49s, and that is not fast becoming, I would actually say for me, the rim depth of choice. I genuinely, Jesse, do not feel a difference, even the fastest fast-paced group rides, with that rim depth. And so I'm getting a slightly wider wheel. It's a couple of mil wider.
Is it?
Yep. Than the 5263, like 0.3 millimeters, I think. And I don't know whether that's making up for it or what's going on, but it has. It's got to the point where I'm quite happy running that rim depth.
It's weird. The external width on the rear, on the deeper wheels, is higher, but the internal width on the shallower wheels is slightly wider. Interesting. I don't know why. Yeah, interesting. I think you're on that. The problem is the difference between the 42-49 reserves and the 52-63s is hardly anything, because you're only gaining a centimeter basically across those two wheel sets. So I don't actually think you've run a proper deep big boy wheel set. So you're kind of going, and the rim weights are about 100 grams heavier, front and rear. So you're getting about 150, 200 grams on the wheel set weight to only gain a centimeter in wheel depth. And a centimeter in wheel depth, I'm pretty sure is only like 1 or 2 watts. It's not at like 40, 45K an hour. It's not heaps. You have to gain a few centimeters to get noticeable aero differences. And the deepest reserves in the wide, they make an 88, but it's the narrower one. So in their sort of turbulent aero, wider rim versions, their deepest ones, your big boy ones, the front's only a 52. So I'd argue I kind of agree with, and I think I understand the sensations you're talking about, but I think that's more that reserve don't really make a proper deep wide wheel set.
Interesting.
You should really, because if you had a wheel set that was a 60 front, 70 rear, still deep, I suggest you would actually feel that difference.
I did run your 50 front, 70 rear combination when we flipped around testing bits and pieces, and I hated it. Due to the twitchiness of it. But you're saying go deeper. But again, like...
Believe in that, you're not gaining that much because that front wheel's the same depth, and the front wheel's what makes the most difference. So you're not changing the rear wheel, making the rear wheel deeper is not...
But just like what you're saying about riding for your own, like, what you do, your own enjoyment, we live in Sydney. It's windy. We live near the coast. It's always windy. I would hate my life riding around, I think, on a 60 plus.
Maybe I'm just saying you've kind of gone, these deep wheels are a myth. Stick your 40s are faster. Because your deep wheels aren't deep. Okay. It's a 50.
It's a fair point.
Another thing just to double down, I actually think the mullet setup with a shallower front, deeper rear actually doesn't really make any sense. Can I try and convince you?
Go.
The front wheel is more important aerodynamically. So if you were going to go, when you go from the 42 to the 49, and then you step up to the 52-63, from an aerodynamic point of view, you're only really gaining 1 centimeter depth in the front, and then you're getting this really big 63 deep rear wheel, which actually isn't saving you that many watts. But then you've got a lot more added weight. Whereas I would say for what you should probably do is take the 52 front from the deeper set and run it with the 49 rear from the lighter set. And I reckon you'd pretty much be there up with the 52-63, but you wouldn't be spinning up that gigantic 63 heavy rear wheel. So you'd probably get the best of both worlds.
Equal depth or reverse mullet?
Equal depth.
Okay.
Yeah. Not quite, I don't know, not reverse mullet.
I've
I'm
got
not
some
quite
time
on
for some
mullet.
reverse mullet philosophy, just quietly. So I do like the idea of a good optimized front wheel that's slicing through the air and then a little snappiness at the back. You can get around it.
Because your problem with the mullet that you've run with that reserve offer is you don't really want to run those because you feel like they're a bit, what you explain? Because it's a bit sluggish? You kind of feel like you're laboring that around?
No, it's the reverse. It's that when I put the shallower ones on, I don't feel like I'm losing anything when it comes to straight line speed.
But you are. Might not be much.
Might not be much.
But you are losing. You just are.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So you're saying when you go to the deeper wheels, you don't feel like it's not like a ride feel difference?
I think when it boils down to it, it's a little bit of additional, I hate the word, versatility on the shallower wheel that I enjoy.
Can you put that into a feeling difference? I don't know what you just said. What does that mean? Versatility.
It means that if I'm riding up to Akuna Bay and there's lots of steep inclines on the way up there, that a bit zippier. It's a bit zippier on the way up.
Zippier. Okay.
And then the trade-off, if I'm doing a crit or if I'm doing the fast pace, is negligible. I just can't be bothered. Yeah.
I'd argue the reason why it doesn't feel as zippy is because the rear is so deep. Because it's got a 63 rear, and the 63 rear is not saving you that much speed because it's at the rear. The front makes more of the difference. I reckon if Reserve just had a same depth front and back, you could get the speed saving without as much of the sluggishness.
Who else do it? Black Ink do it.
Yeah,
they do. They do the varied, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Rovol don't. Zip don't.
Enve do.
Enve do.
Mm-hmm. Even on your reserve wheels, the shallower ones you've got, 42, 49. Why don't they just make the front 49 as well? Should be 49, 49. I reckon that's a better wheel set. Anyway, that's just my thought.
There you go.
I'm cooling on the mullet combo.
Okay.
For that reason.
Now you wanted to talk about tyres?
Oh yeah, just quickly on the tyre. So a tyre update. 32 GP5000 on the rear, which is measuring 34.
That's a big boy.
Yeah, it's a big one, right? Put it on. I think that's I've got over the mental block of going that's got to be slow.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm yet to go. I've gone from like a 28 rear to a 30 rear to a 30 rear on a wide rim to a 32 rear on an even wider rim. It's now measuring 34 and I'm yet to go slower. I haven't done enough tests of it, but I'm still doing my kind of efforts at 42 average, 42 and a half. I'm like, nothing's really changed.
Yeah. Tire pressure in there?
I've been experimenting with different tire pressures and yeah, I'm yet to go slower. And that rear tire is just getting wider and wider and wider.
Well, so when you say experimenting with tire pressures, how low have you been?
For smooth, with that wolf tooth calculator at my weight, with that thing, it says for smooth tarmac, the rear should be at 60, I think.
Oh, wow.
Mixed surface down at 55, and then rough tarmac down at, I think, 48 PSI. So I've been floating, I've tried it at like 52, 55, 60. Changes the comfort a little bit, but
yeah.
again, like even though I'm kind of reluctant to run a 34 rear because it looks bizarre.
Does that fit on the Tavello?
Oh, it's very close to the front derailleur.
Yeah.
It fits in the frame.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty close to the front derailleur. But the wheels, because the rear wheel's quite stiff, it doesn't rub. I've done sprints on it, didn't rub. But yeah, I'm now basically putting the widest rear I can fit in, taking my own advice, and I'm yet to go slower. It's quite bizarre.
I've done the same.
Mm-hmm.
So for the Hayman Classic, I put a 32 on the rear and a 30 on the front of those reserve wheels, and I've left them on. And I've done a couple of tests, and I can't find it to be any slower. I've ridden slightly more varied conditions than you a little bit on there, and I don't know. The threshold has not been found for me. Again, the front derailleur is the real pivot point for me. I could not go any wider.
Probably a really fucking dumb thing. I'll say it anyway. Do they do different spacing for gravel bikes that have 2x front derailleurs? How do people fit a 40 in there with the front derailleur?
This is a dumb question that neither of us are going to know
They
the
must
answer
adjust
to.
the spacing of where the bottom bracket sits. Anyway, I'm sure they do because it obviously fits. I don't know if you experienced this. I always ran the 28 front, and then I was testing the new Hutchison road tires in a 30. And the crosswind stability of the front wheel was markedly different.
Interesting.
And I've since gone back to the 28 front.
Yeah.
And not, obviously people go, oh, maybe the wind condition was different. Yeah, 100%, but it was definitely not handling the crosswinds as well. So I don't know if did you feel a difference going from a 28 front to a 30 front? I don't know what was going. Obviously, it's a different tire, the Hutchison versus the GP5000. And actually, the GP5000's come up a bit wider.
Yeah.
So the difference between the 28 and the 30 in the measured width on the Caden rim was only about 1 millimeter. And I swear to God, the crosswind stability was different. So I don't know if there's something to do with just how the shape of the tire is, or the fact that it is just that little bit narrower. It just manages to not catch the crosswinds as much. But I'm back on the 28 front, 32 rear. So it's like a 31 measured in the front, 34 measured in the rear. And I am not going slower yet.
All right, to round this off, I want to throw in a question from a subscriber.
Okay.
I'm on an air road and I'm in the market for a wheel set.
Okay.
I'm considering Enve 4.5s, Reserve 4249, Reserve 5263, and anything else we might throw in there. I am 86 kilos, so tyre pressure can put me at 70 psi rear with 30mm tyres. That is getting awfully close to the max for hookless. Looks-wise, the whole white logo Enve on white aero would look mint, agreed. That said, I'm nervous about blowing a tyre off. I'm in Missouri, so rolling terrain, not long climbs, but a lot of up and downs. What do you reckon? Am I overblowing the hookless deal? No, I don't. I think you're safe, personally. If I were you, I would go, if you're all about the Enve logos, I would say go nuts. Go that route. The reason I say that is I'm pretty big on this now. Like, if you know what you're doing with the tires, you in this game, you're listening to the Nero show, you know what tire pressure you should be running. Now, would I recommend you get the Enve 4.5s? No, because I prefer the 4249s myself. But you did mention them, that you like the look of them, so I'm not against you going that route.
Are you overblowing hookless? No. If you can buy any wheel set and they didn't just come on your bike, why would you buy hookless? There's a plethora of different wheels. Just get hooked. Don't have to worry about it. Is your tire going to blow off? Probably not. But you're shopping for a wheel set. You don't have to compromise. So out of those three, I would get the reserves. And I don't really have any. I don't have. Of course, there's cheaper wheels, but I do think the reserves are pretty fairly priced. So no, I think if you got the reserves, you'd be pretty happy, and you're not getting. Again, it's not daylight robbery. They're pretty, well priced.
It's
so
sad we can't recommend a DT Swiss wheel here. Really, I mean, maybe you could go those gravel wheels that they were running at Paris-Roubaix potentially.
I recommend a DT Swiss.
That's what I'm saying. We can't.
No.
I'd like to be able to.
Why would you love to be able to?
Because I think it's a good, solid wheel company that, and this guy's, he's got his white aeroed. Probably wants some nice MVDP looking. Well, he's on Shimano wheels, so don't bother with that. I don't know. Don't know where I was really going with that, but awesome. The new Metrons, I'd consider the new Vision Metrons, the new 60s. If you're in that sort of ball game, they're hooked as well.
What else have you been riding, Chris?
Been testing a few helmets. I've obviously been trying to bring back the Prosen Air. It's getting into winter, but I was still toying around with the sunglass look on it.
Did you ever manage to? I don't think you pulled that off. I can't remember seeing a photo. I thought, yeah, you've nailed it there.
No.
I think you just got to do the visor with that.
Well, it's okay now because it's getting cooler. So you can do the visor. I've got no issues with that. But another helmet that I was very interested in was Pipo Ganna's one, the Kask Nirvana.
Mm-hmm.
And so what am I going to say about that particular helmet? Frustratingly, I can't find any actual testing. Because look,
did it do that mega test?
No,
with
it wasn't in there. It was kind of missed the mark on that, like in terms of wasn't quite out in that moment.
Bugger.
So I'm going to talk about an aero helmet without really any chat about aero testing.
Yeah.
But you can see aero, Jesse.
Yeah.
I can hear aero.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
I can hear it. Because I think this sounds like a fast helmet.
Okay.
So when I'm on the Pro Cen Air and you really get the position, you're in the position, you're trying to turtle, things go quiet. You stop hearing the here. And I reckon that's God's way of telling you're in an aero position, you're optimized.
Yep.
I can get into that position quite handily on the Nirvana, and it's quite good from the perspective of it's tiltable as well. So if you do manage to get into a nice little turtle, you can actually tilt it up to actually give yourself a little bit of vision.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a fast position. It is an aero helmet, so the ventilation on it is certainly a challenge. I would suggest this is certainly not a one helmet to do it all. I do think it's going to be too warm for that.
Still too hot. But it's got a massive vent at the front. I'm surprised at that, actually.
It is a bit sweaty. Now, again, this is someone who's used to an aero helmet. For example, I would say it's about 10%. That's right. I'm going to run with percents on this, Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
10% less ventilation than the HJC.
Okay.
But I would argue it's vastly faster.
Mm-hmm.
Vastly faster.
I actually think it looks good in position.
Mm-hmm.
Not if you're just punting around. It looks awful. But when you're tucked in, it looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
It looks very neat.
I totally
when
agree.
You're shrugged in.
It does feel quite dorky to wear because obviously the big thing, this is why I wanted to try it, is because it's got the earmuffs, right? It's got this whole thing that flaps around your ears. And that's why I said it sounds fast because when we do get in the position, it goes quiet. It's not as bad as the Pro Cen Air where you really lose the peripheral sound. The one thing I will say though is you got really good sound when you're looking ahead, but when you turn your head right and left, because obviously the air gets sort of stuck in here or something like that, that's where you do get a bit of...
It's like blowing it into your ear.
Because
it covers... Yeah,
and that's why I come back to this thing of I reckon I can hear aero because when you actually lock in, it all goes quiet and you've got actually really quite good sound, and I reckon it's going to be pretty fast. The other thing visually, I think, hot take, I say that, Chris. I hate hot take. It's such a lame thing to say. I think the coloured versions of these helmets are better looking than the white one. There's something buckety, there's something stormtroopery about the white one. Yeah. They've got the blue one is really nice. I quite like that that blue colour. I've got the custom Nero blue orange crush or whatever it is.
Yep.
On there at the moment. Yeah. So for me, I would suggest temperature threshold around 23, 24 degrees. Wouldn't want to go any hotter than that. Would happily have run it at Grafton, something like that. Probably wouldn't run it at Peaks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That type of area. But
so has it killed the Pro Cen Air?
That's a great question. No, not for just pure performance. Not if I go to, what's the thing we're going to do? Dinneville. Ken Dinneville. I will wear the Pro Cen Air.
Okay. With a visor.
Yes. Full. Good. Full everything.
Good.
Yeah.
Full private team.
So that's clearly, unless Cycling News do a test and this thing knocks it out of the park. But yeah, I would go that route.
All right, Chris. Is that all you had to share?
That's me done.
Alrighty.
All right, today's episode is supported by Pillar Performance. Now, there's a few things on their website. Specifically, you want to start with the magnesium there, Jesse?
The big one is the triple magnesium, 300 milligram blend of 3 different types of magnesium, including magnesium glycinate. That's the popular one that's the rage at the moment. Take it 30 minutes before sleep, helps you get to sleep, and also can help with muscle recovery, so cramps if you're getting some persistent ones during a heavy block of training. Triple magnesium can help you there from Pillar.
Now, as we mentioned last week, they're available in both the powder form and the tablets form. The powder form is obviously there for a drink, which is actually quite nice. You've either got the berry or the pineapple coconut, and a tablet if you are concerned about going to the toilet all night.
As I am.
As you are. Now, I do take creatine. I think quite a few people listening to the show probably do take creatine, and Pillar do offer a creatine supplement.
Yeah, it's one of their most recent products. Now, creatine monohydrate, there's different forms of it. I'll be honest, there's not a lot to gain in going down rabbit holes of different types of creatine. They sell a basic creatine monohydrate in the form of CreaPure from Germany, 5 grams per serving, which is your standard dose. And so if you watch the show and you take creatine, which I'm assuming a lot of people do, if you want to support the show and support Pillar Performance for bringing us in your ears every week, just go buy your creatine from Pillar. Pricing's pretty good, and it's just your standard creatine, which is going to help you with your strength training in particular.
And to support the show, use code Nero. You'll get additional 15% off at checkout. And if you are in the US, go to thefeed.com/Pillar Performance. Sorry, it's actually thefeed.com/Pillar, and use code Nero in their checkout for 15% off. And a big thanks to Pillar for supporting today's episode.
Dog or Fast Bike. Before we get into Dog or Fast Bike, kit update for the Nero Kit. Now, we are still working on the Fondo suit. Still a work in progress.
R&D department.
Hard at work.
Just keep it up, boy. Good stuff.
Yep. In their hand stitching. So that'll be coming down the track. In the meantime, I've put up little bits from orders we've done so far, almost a bit of a stock take before we get the Nero, the Fondo suits in, because, for example, the jersey behind you, the winter jersey, that's basically for us to ride, but when I do the order, I order a few more, and then over time, as I've ordered things in, they've started to build up, and I've put them all on the site now. So there's a few of the gilets in the orange color, which was, again, just for us. I didn't intend on selling lots of them, but we've put them up on the site. So there's 7 gilets in the orange color. There's 5 of those winter jackets, winter jerseys. There's 1 Nero cargo bib in a medium. So someone's going to go and get them.
Ooh.
They're in there.
The white ones?
No. Cargo bib, not the skin suit.
Yep.
Again, it's something that was for basically Chris to wear on a gravel ride, and then there's one left over. And so just if you want to go and have a look on the site, there is the white skin suits too, 2 extra larges in the whites that were left over. So just if you want to get some kit, and you're hearing this early on, there may be some stock left in your site. So just go on and have a look on the site, and once that's gone, then that will be sold out until we get the Fondo suits in. So yeah, check that out. A link in the description.
Dog or Fast Bike number 1, a light carbon frame and fork, 54 centimeter, light carbon integrated bar stem, 38-120, SRAM red shifters, SRAM red 170 mil crankset, 50 tooth Pass Quest 1x chainring, Magine power meter, SRAM Force Explore rear derailleur. That's the older one. Yes. 1044, 0 offset carbon seat post, Ride It 3D printed carbon saddle, Pro X carbon wheel set, all the specs, 24 internal, 30 external, Solaric speed bearings, 1350 grams, SRAM Paceline rotors, 30 mil Pirelli RS tyres, setup tubeless, 3D printed carbon bottle cages, and Shimano Dura Ace pedals. Build weight, 7.1 kilos. Total build cost out of interest, 4K.
USD? Interesting.
4K for frame, fork, seat post, and wheels. In Australia, the wheels landed in Australia for 1975. It's interesting. We roasted a bike last week that kind of looked a bit like this, where it was trying to be we weren't sure what it was trying to be. I think this has just been
You mean the Dengfu?
Mm.
Oh, this is vastly superior to that.
Superior, okay.
I mean,
Okay.
this is just way faster.
Yeah.
Look at the frame. For those that are just listening, this thing looks like a Temu version of a Cannondale Super 6.
Good call.
Which
Good
is acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Really drop seat stays and everything looks kind of slightly trimmed down for aero, which is, that's good. If you're buying an open mold frame, get something with a bit of aero tweak on it at very, very least. The SRAM 1 is cool. Kind of rate that. Decently wide wheels, steel spokes for Chris Miller. Wavy pattern on the wheels. I like that. What's not to like?
The only thing, no, there's not really anything I would change. The only thing is that is an Explore, so it's a 1044. No, well, it's very expensive to get the new Explore, so that's not really fair. No, I rate it. Well done.
Well, that's the thing. That's got to be hard to live with that cassette. I mean, the jumps are going to be brutal. Imagine you're going up a 3% gradient and you're stuck somewhere up the middle of that cassette, and you've got 10 to 15 watt RPM changes in your cadence every time you shift. I don't know.
There's a reason they changed it to their new derailleur. But yeah, I'm not going to let that get in the way of me declaring this a fast bike.
Yeah, well done. Like it.
Second bike. A Trek 2005 race carbon frame, size 54, Lance Armstrong Appreciation. SRAM Red 10-speed mechanical Dura Ace 5339, Dura Ace cassette 1128, Enve composite handlebars 120/40 mils, Stella Italia flight saddle, Dura Ace pedals, no bottle cages. So usually wears a hydration vest during long rides.
Okay.
With sugar. You sure this isn't Duran Riders? One?
No spec on the wheels here. These are another set of wavy. Is this wavy wheel?
Wavy wheel deck. Wavy wheel week.
Looks like a Chinese wavy wheel.
Can I just throw in one little anecdote that he put in the submission?
Shoot.
We don't always read the anecdotes, but this one sort of got my attention. I have 30 KOMs using this frame set around the Gold Coast and Brisbane area. I have an 8:45-minute PB of Bobbin Head East and have dropped numerous people on the chop in Sydney on this bike.
Ooh, okay. An 8:45 Bobbin Head East is not I'm dropping people at the chop numbers. So, especially because you get a good sit up that climb. The first half of that climb is not that steep. So I'm not using the Bobbin Head PB to rate this bike, unfortunately. That's a dog of a bike.
It's a dog of a bike.
I mean, what are we doing here?
Just move on. This is fine. Hang it up in the cafe. Oh, this was the day I met Lance. He signed it here. Fantastic. But go bloody ride a
Could you imagine? I don't know if this is the person's only bike. I'm not sure. Could you imagine if you did a test ride on that bike, and then you instantly clicked your fingers and swapped them to an SL8 with 30 mil tubeless GP5000s and said, "Come on, give it a whack." I mean, instantly game changer. So no, this is absolute dog.
No, this is a dog. Sorry, Lance fanboys, but that is hanging up on the wall. Final dog or fast bike is a Giant TCR Advance Pro, circa 2021, size medium, Ultegra Di2 12-speed, Dura Ace rotors and cassette, Cybre crankset 5236, Nova Ride OSPWs, Fast Sports 5058s with the correct 2430 external, same as the case. Conti Aero, God, he's gone straight for the Aero tyre. All right, Aero tyre on the front. We've got the normal Conti on the rear. We've got Silka 60 mils of 60. The amount of sealant is now being told in the
good.
So we've got 60 mils in there. EXS Aero bars, Stella Italia boost saddle, carbon bottle cages, Ferro Asioma Duro sheaths, 6.85 kilos. And the reason I put this bike in this week is this is a very incredibly popular bike in Australia.
Yep.
That frame set.
Yep.
Anecdotally is the most popular bike I see. And I would go as far as saying that this person is maxing
Yeah.
Maxing.
The TCR maxing.
This is a
Yep.
full TCR max.
Yep.
And
You can't do it any better than
I'm
that.
going to go further and say, yes, it's a slow bike, but that's a fast bike.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Well, yeah, I mean, there's really nothing. There's no stone left unturned in that build there. That's as fast as you're going to get your TCR. Unfortunately, it's just not going to be as quick as a proper bike. But if you just love climbing, but you want to just feel like you're keeping up on the flats, kudos. That's just very, very well spec'd.
And I'm not sure whether it's the image or what, but it's kind of got this really lovely metallic sheen finish on it. I'm not sure whether that's custom or that was a stock in the 21 TCR editions, but looks fantastic. And he's down there in Mallorca or something, is he, in that photo? So no, he's loving life on the TCR.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of people, if they had this bike, they'd be really happy. That's this quite well done.
Well, he's somewhere in Spain. He's probably saved. He hasn't had to buy a new bike for 5 or 6 years.
6.85 with pedals.
It's good. Real good.
Better than a V5RS.
We'll get there. Well, maybe we should just go straight there because
certified fast.
That is
Give
a
it the
certified fast bike. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry to let you know. The V5RS launched. All right, Colnago fanboys. Okay. We're just going to spend the next bit of time, and we're all going to do this together. All right? Just Jesse, me, and you, we're all going to just talk this out because we want to get to a place where we're all comfortable with what's going on. Okay?
I'm really frustrated that we have to talk about it because if it was anyone else, if it was any other brand, what would we even mention about it? I mean, this is a bike that could have been released by Polygon. It could have been released by Giant. It could have been released by Argon 18, and we probably wouldn't have said anything. But because Pogacar's riding it, we have to talk about it, even though there's nothing to eat here. There's no lunch. It's just a nothing burger.
Well, I would say that Time Sycon was a far more compelling launch in terms of, at least there was a chat, there was a narrative. Oh, they do their own layups. That's cool. Let's chat about it for 5 minutes. This, yeah, Tade rides it.
First problem. Dave Arthur's Dura Ace build with Enves on it, no pedals, 6.88. GC Performance's one, also no pedals, in a size 48, 6.83 kilos. Slap some pedals on there. You're struggling to get sub 7. And that's a bike that is costing $16,500 US for a bike that you're scraping under 7 kilos. No one can defend that.
In 2025.
No,
this isn't. We haven't just launched disc brakes on road bikes. This is 2025. This is the Tour de France winner's bike. What?
Garbage. Total garbage. Now, Mapdeck got it lighter, basically by removing every part of the bike except for the actual carbon and then replacing everything. And that's one of the other points I want to make, is that on a bike, and a climbing-focused, they're claiming do-it-all bike, the devil's in the detail. So with an aero bike, I think the devil is in the bike fit adjustability. That's what you kind of need to get right for an aero bike. For a climbing bike, the devil is in the detail of the build, because Colnago can come out and claim, in a size 48 unpainted with no frame hardware, it's 685 grams, and then everyone that's building them as you're going to buy them, they're all 7. So who cares the weight of the frame? And so Mapdeck managed to get his down to, I think, just sub 6 by literally changing every bolt, every tiny little piece of frame hardware he's changed out, changing all the build parts, changing anything that you're actually going to get the bike with, and he managed to get the weight down. When there are other brands that are doing that stock, like that Scott Addict that came out, where they've gone through and painstakingly stripped all the way down. Even Giant do that, I'm pretty sure, and their TCR are pretty good. And they measure, they actually, I'm pretty sure it was Giant, in their, or maybe it was Scott that did it, in their like white paper when they measure it, they explain, the seat post collar wedge bolt, we stripped 10 grams, and the headset stripped 20 grams, and the through axles, we stripped 10 grams. And the Colnago, they're giving like the Chinese bog standard steel spec for all the parts. And so you end up with a bike that's not even barely sub 7 kilos. And even if you didn't give him that benefit of the doubt, the frame set's still heavier than a Tarmac SL8 S-Works. Enves make no sense on this build. It's going to come with Enves because UAE team members ride Enves. The Enves are too heavy to make this bike good at what it needs to be good at compared to the other bikes in the Colnago range, like the Y5RS. So to come out with wheels that aren't letting get the weight down, I think the Enves are holding it back. This bike needs to come with a 1,200 gram wheel set so that it can then be well into the 6 kilo range stock, and then it'd be part of the conversation. Right now, it's just laughed out the door in every sense. Aero testing. Actually, probably believable, just because they've made the frontal area narrower. So, sure, they've slimmed it down a bit. So, at 50k an hour, the weighted average drag across the yaws, bike with a mannequin, the V5RS was 499 watts. The Y5RS was 475. 27 watts faster. The V5RS is 490. So not actually splitting the difference between those two. Kind of a third of the way there. Not hard to believe. But I'm going to do some really dodgy maths, but let's do it. Tour magazine, V5RS was 221 watts. And let's say the best aero, if they reckon the Y5RS is slightly faster than the other best aero bike. So let's say the Y5RS is 200. A third of the way across that gap is 7 watts, which puts the new V5RS at about 215, 216 watts. Best case, because that was their testing's at 50k an hour. I reckon when Tour Magazine test it, I reckon it's going to be 218. I actually don't think it's going to be 217. So it's around that mark, which makes it still 10 watts off any of the other do-it-all bikes. So the aerodynamic, they've made it slimmer, so it's a little faster. It's still miles off any of the other do-it-all competition for those that are maybe thinking, did they make up some ground there? So I don't know if you had any other features to talk about it, but overall, it's well and truly still an absolute dog of a bike.
It's worse. I just can't get that. I can't get that into this bike anymore. Like, from a perspective of, is this a do-it-all? Is it a climbing bike? Is it an aero bike? It's a TCR. Like, this is basically a TCR. I do not know what the thought process is here. And this is
well, it's a heavier TCR.
It's a heavier TCR.
Because
it's 3 times the price of a TCR. I don't know. Because I'm really torn with this. I don't know whether to come at it from the pro cycling, I'm on UAE, this is what I get to choose perspective, or I come at it from the consumer. I feel like going more the pro cyclist angle.
It's almost irritating that we have to take it seriously. Why are we talking about this? What are we doing here? Why did I bother just explaining that?
Because I think the reason I don't really get that interested talking about it from the consumer perspective, because there is no consumer who can rationally sit down and go, yeah, V5RS, choosing that over an SL8 any day of the week.
No.
Like, you're not rationally making that decision. The reason you're making this decision is because Tadej rides it. That's literally the only reason. I mean, the Colnago fanboys who, have the C68s, I don't think they're really engaging with this. I think they like to see Colnago on the top step of the Tour de France podium, but the bike he's riding is not really resonating to them. And they're probably, I don't really know what they thought of the Y5RS. They probably hated it.
It feels quite strange that it's coming from the same brand that released the Y5RS. You could have swore it was, are they separate departments?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a complete another league. And it's not like they don't care. It's almost, it would kind of make sense if they were just like, here's a new bike, Tade's going to ride it, whatever. There's a 17-page white paper on this slop. Like it's not like it's not like they're appearing not to try. There's a whole white paper explaining how average this bike is. So I find it is confusing to me that it's coming from the same brand that seemingly released quite a good bike in the Y1RS. And also that this is in stock. It's in shops. Where the hell's the Y1RS? There's already bike shops selling this and building it up. And yet the Y1 is still on a container somewhere. I don't quite know what's going on at Colnago. Bizarre.
All right. Well, I wanted to take this into the do-it-all bike stratosphere, the do-it-all bike category just in general. Because, yes, I'll be honest, anyone who's watched this show enough knows I'm a little bit biased with it. I don't particularly love the category as a rule, but they're here and there's a lot of people who love them. So what I want to do is I want to do the tier list, because it's all good and well for us to sit here and whinge about this bike, but what do we actually want to see from a do-it-all bike?
Okay.
And what bikes are in the top tiers? So correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, but in April of 2025, this is what I want to see a do-it-all do. This is its specs that it needs to tick, all right?
Okay.
It needs to be sub 7 kilos with a Force or Ultegra build with, say, a 1400 gram wheel set.
With pedals or without pedals?
Without pedals.
Okay.
With Force or Ultegra.
Yeah, step some pedals on it, under 7.3.
Yep.
Okay.
Running that group set. And if you wanted to find another 100 grams here or there, but you're in that sort of, you're in the 7 kilo conversation with a second tier group set.
Yeah, you're not in the top spec struggling to get under 7.
Correct.
Okay, good. Yeah, I agree.
Tour testing. I want you in the 205 to 215 range.
Okay.
Tyre clearance, April 2025. I want you in the 34 to 35 tyre clearance area if you're launching a bike this month.
Yep.
Finally, I want to nod to some modern geometry. I want you to be paying attention to what's going on. And at least give me some compelling conversation when it comes to fit. So that might be sliding seat posts. It might be higher stacks. Give me something to talk about there and we can have a conversation.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
So they're the factors that I want.
Okay.
Moving you then on to my tier list.
Okay.
Do you want me to start at the bottom or do you want me to start at the top?
Start at the top.
Start at the top. So God tier, the number one, rules the planet when it comes to this stuff is the SL8. Pretty much ticks all those boxes, and it was released basically 2 years ago. So, yeah, would you agree with that?
No.
Okay.
I don't think it's God tier. I think it's A tier. I think the geometry holds it back.
Fair enough. So nothing in God tier for you?
I think the Super 6 prices, are we talking price? Or are we just, for this conversation, just ignoring what the price is?
I don't think price factors into its tiering.
Okay.
I think it factors, we're talking about absolute pinnacle bikes as it is.
Okay.
I think it's fair if we're comparing them in the same tier, but I don't think it moves you a tier, if that makes sense.
I got you. I actually, in the competition for the top spot, I actually think the Lab 71 Super 6 would beat the SL8 for God tier because of the geometry.
So, and that, yeah, I don't massively disagree with you because in the A tier, I had Lab 71 Super 6.
Okay. Yep.
2 reasons. Really interesting geometry. I think good geometry and ride quality ticks the weight issues that we were discussing and is right in and around that Tour magazine testing.
Yep.
I would put the Dogma in the A tier as well. Ride, genuine sex appeal. It's in there. I would put the Factor, Ostro, VAM, in the A tier as well. Fast, Cycling News tested it. It's basically one of the fastest do-it-alls around, and it's light. A lot of that is due to those wheels, but I'm still putting it in the A tier.
Okay.
You happy with that tier?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. B tier. Harmless bikes. I don't hate you. I don't love you, but you're a B tier do-it-all bike. Trek Madone? Nah, whatever. It's not an SL8.
We've definitely softened on the Madone. Interesting.
Yeah, I think tour testing is in the 205, 215 area. It's got good tyre clearance. Its bike feature stuff's compelling. The weight's the big problem.
If it was fast, I think it scrapes into the sub 215.
Scrapes into there, yeah. I mean, maybe it's a B minus.
Actually, I'm pretty sure it was 216.
It's a B minus.
Okay.
All right. Enve Mullet, B tier, do it all bike. Testing, tour testings, roughly in their area. Great tyre clearance, compelling geometry argument. Weight's potentially an issue there, but I'm going to put it in the B tier. And finally, your Tavello. Yes, this is where price definitely comes into play, but I think it represents it is a do-it-all. It's not an aero bike. It's a do-it-all. Yep. Tier 3.
I'd argue if you factor in price, Tavello's moving to the A tier.
No, I wouldn't disagree with that. I wouldn't die on that hill.
Okay.
Yeah. I did a 4-tier list. My subcategory was with these boys.
Interesting. So go. Yeah.
V5, just generically don't care about you. You're a waste of space.
It almost doesn't. Yeah.
I didn't know where to put the propel.
Yeah.
The propel, to me, geometry is a struggle. Weight's a struggle. Ride quality seems to be a struggle. But it's fast.
Yeah.
So,
but the weight on the SL0, the integrated seat burst one's pretty good.
Maybe it moves to B tier.
Yeah.
Because it's well priced. Yeah. Okay, I'm not against that idea.
Factor in the pricing. No one really raves about their propel, though.
No. There's a lack of sex appeal.
Bit of a ride feel different problem with that one.
It's true.
Oh, but if you're tiering them, it's definitely not down to the V5RS.
No, it's not in a V5RS. That's completely unfair.
The V5RS is in a uniquely shit tier of its own.
It is.
Because it doesn't really... What is there any other bike you'd put down there with
that's where I really came to a dead end. Because across this...
There's no bike that's... I can't think of another bike that's uniquely that bad across the board.
But then you're starting to talk about bikes that are aging in the tooth anyway. So you're talking about like a BMC Team Machine, not the Team Machine R. So you're talking about that bike, but that's
a climbing
not fair,
bike, isn't it?
No, they claim it's drop seat stays. Like it claims to be a do-it-all.
Right.
Like you're starting to really be unfair comparing a bike launched in April 2025 against that bike, which has got to be at least 3 or 4 years old. Canyon don't really do it all, so I didn't spec that in there. I know the soloist Savello claim it's a do it all, but I just don't really put it on the same plane as these bikes when it comes to performance, really. I feel like I know they have the Caledonia. I feel like it's more their endurance bike.
This is what I think they should have done with it. Go to town on all the build parts to save a couple $100 grams. Use that to make the frame shapes a bit deeper and get it into that 210 to 215 range. It's still not going to be worth the money, but at least it would be in the like the B tier of that rating. Or get the build down to sub 6.8 with pedals around where the Scott Addict is, and then you'd have a decently compelling climbing bike at the very least. Whereas they haven't really done either of them. So it's in a unique category where it's barely better than the climbing bikes aerodynamics-wise, but is not actually any lighter than any of the climbing bikes. And yeah.
That is a really good comparison, not one that I thought about. I mean, the launch of the Attic makes this laughable. I mean, that bike that you can build sub 6 kilos, not that difficultly, won't be that miles off when it comes to some of the aero testing on it. And it's launched a couple of months separate from each other. Which one's being ridden by the guy who's potentially going to win the Tour again? No, not the Addict. So I agree with you. I think they just should have gone pure lightweight, kept the drop seat stays, but get this down to a really, because that's what, I would have thought Poggy would want for those days. I don't know. Maybe
But
he
his
doesn't
bike's
care.
already, yeah, but when he does his chain rings and stuff, he already gets
That's
it.
true.
He already gets it close.
That's true. I'm back in love with Remco. Not that I ever really fell out of love.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a world where this is a classic overreaction Monday bit that you would do on a sports thing?
Okay.
Right?
All right. What do you got?
Is there a world Remco can beat Tadej at the Tour this year? I was like,
this is like
overreaction Monday. I'm overreacting, and I'm ready to call it. I'm on. The golden helmet, the golden arrow bullet is he's gonna do it. Is there a world that can happen this year?
This year?
This year.
No.
Damn. Really? No. Okay.
Did you watch last year's Tour de France?
Yeah, but that's last year. Remco's on the up and up. Bloody Poggy's washed now. He's washed. Had to sit up. 6Ks to go. And then
No. Sidetrack, YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
You remember EJ?
Mm-hmm.
From NorCal?
Mm-hmm.
Started his own channel.
Mm-hmm.
Went his own way. Did a video recently where I've been for the last month. Burnt out.
Gone.
Burnt the clutch. Unfortunate, actually. Kind of an interesting story. Right, so editor for NorCal in the cycling scene, then decides to get fit and thinks, I'm going to go my own way, get my own sponsors, do my own ad reads, make my own content. Really quick rise, like seems pretty successful, both in terms of the views he's getting, the interest, and also his results. You know, he gets fitter, blah blah blah. Does that for what? About a year? Then kind of disappears for a month, and turns out he's got a full-time job now for Mike's Bikes, running their YouTube channel, and basically went, I kind of burnt out with my training and my racing, kind of lost interest. The content was burning me out. I was working too hard on it. I kind of lost interest, and now I'm just enjoying a more stable job working for Mike's Bikes, and I might do a few more videos on my channel, might not. I'm going to run some half marathons, and like, he's just being honest. Like, it is happening. It's not like I'm not trying to be like purposefully negative about it, but like, is that example that he set through his channel a force for good because that motivated people during the time he was uploading to get on their bikes and it was giving people interest in the sport? Or is that actually more of a force for bad in hindsight because it turns out that example he was setting was just totally unsustainable. The results he was getting weren't sustainable, and now he's just totally dropped off.
I'd take a pretty positive spin on it. I think it is a 12 to 18 month period where, yeah, it is certainly doing positive for the sport and hopefully getting people to pin numbers on. Definitely. Is it a sustainable model? No, of course it's not. But I think there'll be some other dude in a couple of months who'll bob up and he'll start doing races and he'll have a compelling personality and people will watch him, and that's fine. My take is, and I don't know anything, but we need a really good US-based bike reviewing, content producing conglomerate, like a GCN type thing that's got a more, because all this fucking content comes from like a 5K radius outside of Bath in the UK. Bike Radar, Cycling Weekly, GCN, the other one. They're literally within a 5K radius of each other. So if EJ can go to Mike's Bikes, and Mike's Bikes huge, like it's a big department store of stuff, and they've got this desire to make good, and they've done a few like what is Tyres for this and that kind of stuff. If you can become a US based good content production facility, and he facilitates that, I think that's a fantastic outcome for him. Great job. Mm-hmm. He's in a sport that he really enjoys, nails down some product, doesn't have to bother going to some shitty crit in bloody Bakerstown, California. No offense, listeners in Bakerstown.
sorry, Bakerstown.
Yeah. So hopefully positive outcome, and I'm sure there'll be like there's plenty of people racing crits in NorCal who will hopefully make some content around it as well. I don't know. I don't get too attached to it personally.
No, not a lot. I don't get attached to the creator itself. It's just, have you seen the rise of this people doing this kind of like my my 5 to 9 after my 9 to 5 thing, and it's like the new. It's no longer I'm a pretend full-time influencer. It's I'm influencing, but I still have a job and kind of that kind of thing. I feel like that's more productive for people as opposed to kind of watching this guy and you're going like, I think some people probably felt a bit bad. They're like, I'm not really progressing at the same rate as this guy. He's flying through the grades.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hadn't looked at it from that way.
You know, it all looks, it's so awesome. He's making all these videos. And then it turned out that whole, not just the training, but the whole thing of it wasn't sustainable. Whereas more of the people doing the like, I went for an hour and a half ride after my 9 to 5 job thing. I think that's more of an avenue I appreciate watching because it's more realistic for the average person. I think this is just an interesting example of the other side of it.
When I saw him do, I think he did like a video a day for 30 days.
Yeah.
Just like, mate, this is not going to end well for you. Trust me. Yeah. But no, I don't know. I'm kind of positive on it.
Yeah.
Hopefully Mike's bikes produce good content.
But no, like I think I agree with you. Like that's a very nice job to go into. Totally. Like that's all, from a personal point of view, it's good he's there. Just the other side.
All right, and just before we go, a little bit of what are we riding news. I'm going to get a chance to ride the unicorn itself. No, not the Seeker Spear. The Bianchi Oltre RC. The bike.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
There's one in the country.
So there is one in the country.
I've never seen one on the road except for under Hugh Harvey, who rides for the Cofidis development team.
So yeah, this is all due to Bike Shop up in the northern beaches of Sydney. Heights Cycling is a Bianchi distributor, or retailer, I should say. And yeah, reached out. Chris, I've heard you talk about this bike as a unicorn. Well, guess what? We have one.
Okay.
And I sent him my specs.
Yeah.
And he's like, this will work for you. It's like, it's up here if you want.
Okay.
So yeah, I haven't actually gone and picked it up yet, but I will go and I'm going to ride it. And I want to do what I did with the Madone.
Okay.
And I'm going to give it a testing.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Is there any world where I can change your opinion of what you already think about this bike with my ride experience? Is there anything I can say to you that you go, fuck, okay? I mean, actually, where do you land on it now?
Well, what's the build on it? What wheels are you putting?
So, no, this is such shit chat.
I want to know.
What tires with tire pressure?
What are you putting on
It's
it?
SRAM red with, SRAM red.
Are you doing
new
this?
SRAM red? So wheels. So the reason I did the SRAM red is because then I can put my reserve wheels on it to do some flip flopping. But
Okay.
it comes with the Corsa. What are they called?
Reparto Corsa. Are you going to test those wheels too, or are you just going to
Yes, no, we'll test them. I'll start with those. They're set up tubeless, Pirelli tyres.
What could you tell me that makes me think this is a good bike?
Yeah, what could I tell you? Because the gap with this bike as it stands is there's no testing of it.
No.
And there's not going to be at this point. The bike's been out so long, it's not going to suddenly bob up in the Tour magazine testing. Weirdly, they've tested the Specialismo. It was odd, but anyway. So what can I tell you? Can I go, mate, this is a fucking rocket ship.
Yeah.
Jesse.
If you say that, I'll take it on board. I will. No, I will. You take it to the shop and you go, yeah, it's
on.
Yeah.
We're on here.
I trust your intuition on it.
Yeah.
The problem for it is that it needs to be either lighter than the S5.
Won't be.
Okay. So scratch that. Or needs to have some magic ride feel.
Some special sauce.
If it doesn't have special sauce in the ride feel, then in what avenue is this going to be better than any other aero bike? Or does it not need to be?
I don't know whether I don't have the skill, but I don't think I can. I can't feel special sauce.
Yeah, you can.
No,
yeah,
I don't
you can. Come on, you can. That's Bianchi XR4 special sauce. Like that's why you buy aside from the branding, that's why you buy a Bianchi, is because you believe they've injected some magic into the layup.
Fair point.
I think that's what it needs to have, because you've already said it's not going to be lighter.
No.
I don't think it's going to be sub 200 watt tour magazine.
Only thing I don't know is the handlebar width. I haven't actually checked that. I'd assume
There's a lot of interesting tube shapes. There is, I'll put this out. There is a world where this is actually really slow.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of shaping and bits and bobs, and you're thinking, oh, if one of them catches the wind a bit the wrong direction, you could be losing some speed. So I would be I'm actually quite curious to see how fast you think it feels, given that it hasn't been tested.
I am very hopeful of that front end being fast. Just from what we've seen with the Y1RS and what we know the S5 is, I'd like to think we're getting somewhere with that.
It's just not very narrow.
No, that's true. It's a lot of bike.
There's just a lot. That's what I mean. There's just a lot to look at there, and that's not.
It's a lot of bike.
Particularly good. Anyway, interesting.
Yeah.
To try.
Big shout, Heights Cycling. Thank you for the opportunity to do this, and we will check in. Probably won't check in next week. Might check in the following week. The full report. Tempted to do an actual review on the channel of this. If there is something, if I can.
The position looks good. The stack height looks pretty neat.
If I can sniff out some special sauce or something, I might do something on it. Don't hold me to that. All right. I think that might be us done this week.
Are you going to use the fairings?
Oh, yeah, I'm staying open.
Oh, good.
I'm going UCI legal. No chance.
Illegal?
Illegal.
Oh, okay, cool, yeah.
100%. No chance I'm closing those over. Great. I want to be disqualified from a race with that.
So you can come on here and rant about how it's...
I'll put a helmet. I'll put a camera on my helmet, attach it to my helmet. So now I'll keep our fairings open.
Very good.
All right. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks for listening, guys. See you then.